Surf's up, guys, it's Mauisnake, and today we are doing an Iem Rio preview and predictions. And hold up. You obviously see that this video is powered by Pinnacle, and this isn't going to be just some shameless promotion. I'm not going to just go on their website and say, you should place these bets. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give my feelings for teams, and are they trending upwards or downwards, or is there any really reason to believe, due to any other circumstances I'm aware of, do these bets make sense? Do these odds make sense? And so it'll give us a framework to talk about teams that we're already interested and tournaments that we're also interested on top of that. But it's going to make Pinnacle happy. Maybe it'll make some of you guys some money, but I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it won't, though. All right. So one thing you're going to want to do first to shape your analysis and set your expectations for a tournament is look at the odds on a website like Pinnacle. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the CSGO category, you're going to go to leagues, and then you would click the tournament that you're interested in. Then you would find the outright odds here, and all of these numbers are basically saying how much multiplied by the amount that you're betting are you going to get back. So essentially, you look at this and you see that 9Z has the lowest number, because if you bet $1 on 9Z to win the whole tournament at Rio, you would get 67 times your money, which is crazy because they're not going to win, guys. Let's be real. But I'm going to use this just to basically talk about the tiers that Pinnacle sees these teams in and how some of my expectations differ just a little bit, okay? So they have, as the overall favorites to win the tournament, they have FaZe. Then they have Heroic, Cloud9, and Na'Vi. You can see that in these numbers that it's these 4x kind of numbers, but there's a huge drop-off after Na'Vi to Vitality to win this tournament. So they think that FaZe, Heroic, Cloud9, and Na'Vi are essentially in the S tier. They would see this as their own tier list, and then they have these very slight differences for who they think is going to win. I'm going to be flat out here. I think Heroic has a great chance to win this tournament because they, to me, play great Counter-Strike all the time, and their floor is exceptionally high. Heroic's floor has proven to me time and time again that you should never count this team out for not getting just deep into the stages of any tournament now. Unless they run into a team like FaZe or practically Na'Vi or G2, they are good to get very far into a tournament run. Other teams now have shown to me that they have surprisingly low floors consistently enough. Cloud9 is a team that in this tier of 4x bets that I would probably put lower because of what we've seen from them at the most recent RMR and how we've seen them bomb out in the last year. And yes, I've provided reasons before in the past for why I think Nafany's style of calling is flawed, and the reason is because I think it has an exceptionally low floor despite the fact that he has great players. Kerrigan has talked about trying to raise his team's floor by adding more structure. I dislike Cloud9's structure immensely. It's that it has a structure, but it just relies so much more on individuals' performances than other team structures. So, for example, like Furia's structure is almost sacrificing Art a lot of the time. So if Art pops off in the structure that he's created, he still has a lot of structure, but it actually doesn't even rely on his individual play. They can still win games when he plays badly. In fact, it's part of the structure. So that's how I'm describing this. And that's why when I look at those teams that are in that S tier, I think Heroic is one of the safer bets almost to go deep in this tournament. But the main thing is that getting over that final hurdle and winning a big tournament is something that has been difficult for them. It hasn't eluded them. They have won some tournaments now. They won last year at the fall finals, and they actually just look like, in general, a team that's going to make a lot of finals. So that's a team that I would kind of look at. And if I just had to like make an outright bet right now, I would actually probably pick Heroic, because I think a few of these teams going into this don't care about Rio as much. But Heroic is always trying to just get these S-Tier championships because everything matters to them so much more. Like FaZe, Na'Vi, I think they're going to go deep in these. But FaZe, I wouldn't even be surprised if FaZe just kind of like barely doesn't make it to the playoffs or something weird. If they make it to the playoffs, it's kind of a different story. But a team like Na'Vi is also a safer bet to me than, say, Cloud9. So that's kind of interesting that the odds differ like that. We see that their B tier is kind of like, it's kind of wider as teams now kind of gradually fall off. There's Vitality with 9.7 odds here. There's Furia with 11.6. Last time in Rio, Furia played better than they should have. And so I could see them actually overtaking Vitality. I could actually see them potentially overtaking Cloud9 in the way that I perceive a lot of this. And I think that the other teams more or less graded right. Still don't really think anybody that's in the 10x plus range, though, has a chance to make it. And that's why I think Furia kind of is one of those ones where you might take a flyer on and you might just, however you structure your betting habits, like with units, this is something where you take half a unit maybe on Furia, because there's really no way they should be winning this tournament also. But like, we saw the Rio buff before, and so 11.6 odds for them to win it all when we saw their improvement last time they were in Brazil. I almost feel like that should be like an 8.2, so I think that you could maybe get a better, you're getting a good bet by getting an 11.6 here. Okay, let's look at the head-to-head matchups here. And one thing I want to point out immediately is that something is flawed right now for Pinnacle on this site. So if you want to actually make a couple more bucks, make those extra pennies here and there, look at this. When you're looking at match right now, it says 1.49 for NIP to 2.66 for Imperial. These are BO1s, okay? And what they also have is map 1 scores. So NIP is 1.485 here, and Imperial is 2.67. So if you actually want to bet on either of these teams, make sure you're clicking between match and map to see where you will get paid out a little bit more, because there is an inconsistency with this, and Pinnacle should know this. So that's why I'm spelling it out blatantly, even on a partnered video with them. Imperial versus NIP, we see that NIP 1.49 to Imperial's 2.66. This is a scary one for me if I were to place a bet, because this team thought that they were going to not be playing for a long time. I think they thought that their next tournament was going to be in Washington, D.C. for the Blast Spring Finals. And so for them to come into this tournament, the benefit for them is that they are coming in thinking that, they're on home soil, they have this extra chance, they might kind of come out swinging in a unorthodox way. But you don't know always with teams, is that going to actually help them because they're going to lose a little bit of their structure and they're going to have this renewed sense of purpose, or are they going to actually play worse because the structure is what was carrying them? NIP, on the other hand, is a team where I'm not really sure what still to make of this team, because they were so bad at ESL Pro League and they were just abysmal to watch, but they actually look significantly better at the RMR. They were able to punish big in that matchup to qualify for the major a lot more often than I thought the NIP of Pro League would have. So I think that this NIP team is actually trending upwards pretty nicely. So I would doubt that Imperial is able to find the victory over NIP, but it's just a scary one because I don't know if Imperial is going to come out with some different stuff, like, is Vinny going to be like, Vinferno, or is Fallen going to be like, the last dance, the Mongols versus Na'Vi. This is a game that, even though it's a BO1, I think Na'Vi are taking this all day. They've made it to 10 of the last playoffs that they've had to qualify for. I'm not even including blast games. I'm including mostly the ESL events and the last 3 majors. They made it to the playoffs in, winning one of those majors, obviously. And then they've, on top of that, made it through all the blast groups, spring groups, fall groups, to make it to those subsequent spring or fall finals. And then they've, of course, made it to the global finals on top of that. And so even though you might think that IHC or Mongols have a chance here, I actually don't think the style that Mongols plays is unique enough to catch Na'Vi off guard. If the Mongols played like outsiders, I would say hold your horses here, but I just think that this is Na'Vi all day. Big versus Maus, I think the odds here are actually a lot closer than they should be. I think Maus are more favored in this than what we're seeing. I like Big a lot. Everybody knows I like Big a lot, but I know now what I'm seeing with this team, and I know what their biggest faults are. The inexperience on a couple players leads them to find losing conditions in rounds that otherwise shouldn't. The amount of times I see Big losing man-up situations is not supposed to happen. The amount of times I see them losing, even though they're positionally advantaged, also not supposed to happen. I think the setup that they have in rounds is interesting. I think that it's very obvious that they're bringing new stuff to the table a lot of the time, but I think that fundamentals is what betrays Big the most in a lot of matches, whereas Maus is a team where I do not worry about their fundamentals. What I worry about sometimes is the fact that when they actually are trying to punch up to the S tier, that the Opper in Torji is not as good as really any opper of S-tier teams. I even think I could make a case that OC is better than Torji. And so that's really where I think Maus hits their ceiling, but I don't think that it's actually going to be hit with big. So I think that this is pretty favored for Maus. Heroic versus 9. This is a matchup that I think has a lot of upset potential. And yes, I did just talk about how I think that Heroic are incredibly consistent, but this is a BO1 against a team that plays very similar Counter-Strike to Heroic. At the end of 2022, I think a lot of teams were looking at G2, Outsiders, and Heroic, and they were saying, which team can we feasibly imitate? And I think that that team, to most rosters, especially 9, was Heroic. Proactive CT styles where you are gambling a lot of the time, where you're making pushes, hoping that your one player on one side of the map is just blocking with all the utility that he can as the play is being made, with the majority on the strong side of the map for the rest of your teammates. That is what 9 are doing. 9 are looking to always make a play, and that's why they are a team that has a lot of upset potential. And when you look at these numbers, even would 9 beat Heroic 1 out of 3 times? I would say surely. Vitality OG, I would take Vitality in this one very often. I'm surprised the odds are actually this decent, as in like you could get this much back on betting Vitality, because OG to me just haven't really actually made the necessary strides to become a team that I really believe in. Yes, they made it through the RMR, but I also think that this team is lacking a lot of depth in terms of mid-rounding, in terms of the calls, the playbook. I think that Nico as an IGL is just so far behind Vitality and Apex that I don't understand why this is so close. So yeah, this to me is actually kind of an easy pick for Vitality. I feel like I might be missing something because yeah, this is odd. Okay, that brings us to MIBR Cloud9, and I'm going to give you one way that this upset happens, that Cloud9 are just getting off a flight from Brazil. MIBR have been in Brazil. They are made in Brazil, and Cloud9 are so emotionally distraught and lost after that FaZe game that they won't give what they should to this BO1. Reminder, this is a BO1, and MIBR have a player in Insani that could go toe-to-toe easily with Nafany. Mechanically, he's much stronger than Nafany. It's just that MIBR should lose this most of the time because they don't have those moments in terms of transition, in terms of what they want to do for their next play. It takes them a while to come up with those ideas, and Cloud9, they know what they want to do next in their flow chart, in what Groove has built for this team. Should Cloud9 ever lose this? No. Given the circumstances, it's possible. Furia Fnatic, I would give this one to Furia. This plays into the narrative that I think that Furia are going to do a little bit better than people expect just because they're playing in Brazil. We saw how that helped them at the last major, and I think that's going to be pretty similar here at Iem Rio. Fnatic are a solid team, but also just added context even beyond the fact that I think the narrative works in Furia's favor. The last time these two teams played against each other, Furia 2-0'd Fnatic, and I think that something similar could easily happen today. Last matchup, FaZe versus 9Z. 9Z didn't even qualify for the Americas RMR. It was Bestia, that was the Argentinian team that was playing there, and so if 9Z didn't even make it to the Americas RMR with the low quality of play at the bottom half of those teams that were at the Americas RMR, grading them on an international scale, then I think 9Z have no chance in this game. If you gave 9Z a 7-0 start in this game, I think FaZe would still win this BO1, and so I have no worries about FaZe whatsoever. So that's going to be it, guys. Thanks for watching. And yeah, this is obviously a different kind of video. If you have ways that you would want me to look at the betting website or Pinnacle differently, let me know, write in the comments. If you like this sort of stuff, well, glad you're here. Make sure to like, subscribe, etc. Write a comment that you do like it. But yeah, I mean, this is obviously a different format for me. I don't bet because you're not supposed to bet if you are CSGO talent. So these are all just kind of my interpretations of these odds and how I perceive them. And yet I'm not putting my money on the line. Just putting that out there. I think I have to say that so I keep getting hired at the events that I love working at. And yeah, as always, being toxic is a choice.